Hello, hello, and welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you this Monday, and I'm so thrilled and grateful that we have opportunity to connect, to have conversation, and to engage. I want to wish you the most fantastic, phenomenal week ahead. And with that, I say, I would love to know how you're doing today. I would love to know how things are going on for you and to support you. Let's support each other on this journey called life, whether we are in a personal life, a professional life. I believe extending a kind hand to one another can lift us up. And hopefully we can together make this world to be a better place. My name is Jana Masik. I'm the host of this LinkedIn Live broadcast, Powering Unique You. And I am so excited to just open up this week with a wonderful conversation. The conversation is really about influence, right? We all want to be influencers, but how can we become, and I hope you want to be influencer, we do want to influence others around us. And how can we become the best influencers we can be, no matter what title we wear? We want to become the person who propose others, to drive others toward the better and bigger and brighter things, and ignite people to find power within themselves. And today's guest is really fantastic. I am so happy to invite this gentleman. He has done a phenomenal work in talent transformation. He's talent transformation expert. He's worked with over 250 clients with Fortune 500 companies. And he helped companies to transform their culture, to strengthen their people, and to really find this dynamic employer-employee relationship so they can create connections and then create significance in the workplace. He's also certified with John Maxwell team, and he has a book, and I put that book in the link of this message, so check it out. It's Strategic HR, Driving Bottom Line Results Through Your People. I do believe it is very important to focus on people nowadays. And as always, people are the most important, I feel, the most important asset that any company can have. And without further ado, I'm so thrilled to bring on Ed Krow. Hello, Ed.
Hey, good morning, Jana. How are you?
Wonderful today. How are you doing today?
Oh, it's awesome to be here. It's a great way to start the week.
That is true. Fantastic. And Ed, I just look at everything that you have accomplished in life, everything that you have created. Maybe share with our audience what drives you internally to make such a big change in the companies you're working with and the people you're working with.
Well, I think that we're all called to be influencers. We're called to be change agents, and especially I know so many of your listeners are in the people management and people leadership space, and for the last 20 years, we've been hearing how HR isn't respected enough, and they're not at the table, and they're not strategic. And part of my mission, I guess, my professional mission has been to change that. And I don't believe that change is needed at the executive board level. I think it's needed within us as HR practitioners. We have to be different. We have to change how we do business and how we operate and how we view ourselves in order to not just get that seat at the table, but have something to say of value once we're sitting there. And that's what drives me.
I love your mission. I can see that, you want to make that difference. And that's why I'm so thrilled to have you and have this conversation today on the show. And really, I believe the topic is important because it's about realizing your power of influence others, like you said, no matter, what title you wear, no matter what exactly, you're in the position right now. But if you unleash that power from within, you can drive change, and you can actually, influence people and decision for better. So how can our viewers determine, Why is that they think that they need to develop that power of influence to be able to influence others?
Well, I think the first thing that listeners, and I do this for me too, is I always ask that why. Why am I in this situation? What's the outcome I'd like to see, and what's in the best interest of it? In my case, it would be of the client, but for an internal person, it's what's in the best interest of the business. And so for me, that helps to ground me in the why I need to be influential in any given moment. And I want to be clear that influence isn't about using people. It's not about manipulation. Okay. It's about being able to articulate a vision and then inspire people to take action on that vision. That's what influence really is. And I think that it's something that in HR and in all the talks that I give to HR groups, whether it's at the SHRM level or state and local chapters, one thing that I get disheartened about is that so often when I ask the groups, hey, do you have a seat at the table? And the people that don't will say, well, it's management's fault I'm not at the table. And I'll say, well, why is that? Well, because management are idiots, or they'll say all these crazy things. And I don't buy into that. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't some management folks and executives who are, I won't say idiots, but maybe not are the most professional. But I say, well, what are you doing to change that? I mean, I'm such a believer that if you're showing value, and I don't care what discipline you're in, HR or otherwise, but if you're showing value to your organization, you're not going to have to ask to be seated at the table. They're going to pull you in and get you to the table. So I always challenge folks to say, well, what are you doing to add value, true value to your organization? And that's a good soul search for us in HR. Too often, we're viewed as what? The compliance police, the party planners, the performance management, Gestapo. I mean, you name it, I've heard it in terms of, the names of for HR people. And if you look at pop culture, movies, TV shows, look at how HR is portrayed. We're portrayed as buffoons.
Yeah.
And there's always truth in fiction, right? And so my challenge for us is, how do we change that? And we have to do that from within. Asking for respect, not going to cut it. We have to demonstrate we're worthy of respect, and that comes from adding value.
I agree with you. I think this is phenomenal advice. It's simple. And I'm just going to do this. I'm going to open up the dog. Come on, Chippo. My doggo. It's a live video. And my doggo was not let go. And now he's running around trying to find his way out. I agree that adding values, and that ties in so well with the, the reason why I started this broadcast, to help people realize that they can have power on igniting and bringing change starting from within. And like you said, many people, they're looking for outside conditions or outside people to guide them and to empower them. But yeah, I agree that when you start looking and when you begin with saying, I have the value, and how can I add value to my team, to my organization, grow myself and develop, so then others pulling me and they say, I really want to hear what you get to say. That is so important. And I believe that power is available to anyone. Like for today's conversation, no matter what title you hold. I've read a story somewhere that a janitor came up with an idea. I think it was something about ketchup or sauce or something. The janitor came about an idea, observing the market of what kind of sauce was missing, and he brought it up to the president or the leader executive of that company, and they actually considered that because he caught something that was missing, and all the salespeople that were high in the positions, they didn't come with that idea.
Right.
So it's not a matter of what title you have, but it's a matter of you realizing you have power, and if you start working on growing that power, you can really make phenomenal impact in your own life and the life of those that are around you. And let's segue from that wonderful advice that you've given into self-leadership.
Okay,
And
great.
how would you
Perfect
describe self-leadership, and where can I and our listeners, where can we start with that?
So what a great segue. We were on kind of the same mind meld there, because if we're going to add value, that comes from within. And so the first thing that we have to look at is, how well are we leading ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at that, I want today's listeners to think about this. So think about the last time you trusted someone to do something and they didn't come through for you. And you probably went to hold them accountable, and you didn't accept their excuses. You said, we need to get this happening. We need to move this forward, right? But what happens when we don't follow through on our own commitments? Sometimes it's, oh, well, the kids are off school today, so that happened. Or, well, this happened. It's like we let ourselves off the hook for things that we don't let other people off the hook for. And so for me, that's where self-leadership starts. Mm-hmm. It's in the discipline to hold ourselves accountable to doing and being the things that we need to do and be for our organization and for our people. And that has implications not just in the business world, obviously, but in the home. Are we being the best husband, wife, mother, father, partner, whatever, right, that we can be for those around us? And that's where value starts. So this idea of influencing others and value and starting with ourselves has implications far beyond just the business side of our lives. And so if we don't lead ourselves well first, we can't possibly look to lead others first.
I agree.
Others well.
I agree.
And so everything starts with how we handle our own behaviors and our own dedication to sharing value with others.
Yeah, I agree absolutely, Ad. I do believe that self-leadership ties into self-discipline. Mm-hmm. And if it's interestingly enough, just a side note, I know we chatted a little bit about parenting before we went live. Sometimes when we approach discipline toward children, it's in a little bit of a negative aspect. It's just some type of a social way of saying, you got to discipline your children.
Yeah.
But when you say self-discipline, we kind of look at it a positive, it's just, I'm going to have to push yourself a little bit. So it's interesting that the discipline to yourself that you apply to yourself is so much more difficult than you can apply to children. And it's interesting enough with that view to say, how can you lead yourself? How can you be more self-disciplined? Is really start speaking with yourself positively. Start encouraging yourself to drive yourself towards your goals. And if you approached it with children, it can be a completely different way of how you discipline. It's really disciple is like teach them, lead them, cheer them. I love this. So maybe some practical advice to how to unlock it. How can you unlock this leadership potential, the possibilities, starting with self-leadership and then with ability to lead and influence others? What advice would you give to us?
Well, I think we have to also think about our why. Why is it that we want to lead others well? And who do we want to be in the business sense? Okay. Do we want to be the best HR person we can be? Do we want to be the best leader we can be? And if the answers to those are yes, then we have to look at how do we build our own skill sets? So many of us get caught up in going to conferences that are related to our profession, and we take all the technical courses because we need to know the nuts and bolts of our profession. But if we're going to lead ourselves well, we also have to take time to do the personal self-development. And that means getting beyond the technical aspects of our jobs. And I mean, I know for me, being self-employed, no one's holding my feet to the fire in self-development. And so I realized a couple of years ago, gosh, Ed, you're not doing a lot for you. And so I made a commitment to myself that one of the things I was going to start doing was on a routine basis, mixing in business-related books into my reading. That sounds something obvious, but I don't enjoy reading business in the evening because it stimulates the brain and then I don't want to fall asleep. So I like to read fiction in the evening. But I realized that I wasn't expanding my own concept and ideas. And so I make sure that I make time to listen to a podcast, read a chapter in a book, an article, something on a daily basis that challenges me to think differently about the business world. And I've been doing this for several years now, probably going on 3 or so. And it's made a complete difference in how I approach things with my clients, how I approach things with me. And for me, it's been amazing, the transformation. So that's what I like to tell others is, if you're not taking time to develop yourself outside of technical skills, you're doing yourself a disservice, because the reason that you're not at the table, if you're not there, isn't because you don't know your technical skills. It's solely because you don't have those interpersonal, influential, and leadership skills to be viewed as a leader in the organization.
This is like, yes. I'm just saying yes to everything you say. I 100% relate to that. And I could see in my personal experience where, I've observed some employees that were so good and really powerful at technical knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
They really knew what they're doing technically. But if you look at their way of even speaking and conveying their thoughts and being able to relate to others and being able to bring a team together, and the amount of how much they focused on their self-growth and self-development was not adequate enough for them to be promoted to the leadership position, promoted to the next level. And this is a great advice that you're giving, Ed, that you have to realize that all of those certifications and all of those diplomas, they're fantastic to have. They're awesome. Mm-hmm. They have value, yet it's not sufficient. And you have to grow, and you're have to develop yourself continuously if you want to see the progress in trajectory of your professional growth and personal growth, and become the person who is invited to be at the seat, because you have a different perspective, because you have put a time to water your internal ability to grow and make a difference. I love it.
Way to put it.
I love it. And what's the key? So we said, I love that you said the leadership abilities tie into your personal development. So there's a professional development and a personal development. Mm-hmm. And we realize there's a need for that growth to happen. What is the key? And how many people, where people can start? Let's say, you have maybe, I've met few ladies that have bachelor's degree, master's degree, yet they're in the entry position. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, I don't know, where do I start? So where can someone start on that growth level?
So again, for me, what works is reading. And I believe in carving out time on your schedule for your personal development on a daily basis. Yes, I said it, daily. Okay. Now, does that mean you got to spend 2 hours a day? No, I don't care if it's 5 minutes a day, but take some time to shut your door, turn your phone off, listen to that podcast, read that article, read a chapter in a book, jot notes about what you just read or listened to and how you can implement that. There's nothing worse than spending the time and then not following up on it. And so for me, it's those little bits. And I always debate folks who say, I don't have time and I don't have time. There's a difference between not having time and not making time, right?
Yes.
And so we always make time for the things that we want to do. Always. Yeah. We all do it, right? Yes. If you love your kids, you make time to go to their school plays and their sporting events and everything else. If you love your spouse, you make time to go on dates with that person. I mean, whatever it is, you make time. And so if you want to be an influencer, you want to be a better leader, then you have to make time for that, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Your boss isn't going to come along and say, did you get your 10 minutes in today? It's not going to happen. And so that goes back to the self-leadership, right? And the discipline to say, you know what? Ed's right. I'm going to sit down for a couple minutes every day, and just think about all the time we waste on social media, right? Think about if you took, even if you don't want to give up your social media, just take half of it and say, you know what? I'm going to turn off Facebook or whatever for a half an hour today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to do this over here for that half an hour. You will be amazed. I mean, I don't know how else to put it to today's listeners, that you will be amazed at the time you can free up
Yes.
if you are truly dedicated to improving your skill sets as a leader.
Yes. This is simple and practical.
I'm a
And
simple guy.
very achievable. I
It is.
love this.
It is.
And because we all need to do self-audit from time to time. We all need to, again, it's come from to that self-accountability. Doing self-audit, where your energy goes, where do you spend your time, where do you spend your attention? We only have a finite amount of our energy and time, and it's up to us. Like you said, your boss is not going to come and nudge you on what do you do in the free time. And then also, I believe, like you've mentioned, that it's also placing a value on it. It's realizing that the seeds that you're planting right now in yourself, it's like we talked about the potential. You look at your potential, right? And the seeds you're planting today can help you in the future to really grow and blossom something that is phenomenal. And if you don't take the small, simple steps today in planting the seeds and watering yourself and preparing yourself for growth, how can you expect the fruit to be produced, right? So this is really placing value on that. Taking small, simple steps in developing yourself can yield fantastic results in the future.
Absolutely.
And what about self-reflection? Why do you think self-reflection is important in increasing our ability to influence others?
Yeah. So when you think about your day, or you think about a given situation, I like to sit back and say, okay, first off, how did that go? Did it go the way I wanted it to go? First off, if it did, why? Why did it go the way I wanted it to go? What did I do that helped to move that situation in the direction that I really wanted it to go? Because I want to emulate that again, right? If it didn't, then I ask the same question. Why didn't it? What could I have done differently that would have allowed the situation to move in the right direction? And how can I learn from that? If we don't reflect on the significant moments in our lives on a daily basis, we're destined to repeat things either unknowingly and be achieving goals unknowingly, or worse, repeating the same mistakes over and over again because we simply don't take the time to figure out what went wrong. And so much of it comes back to, what can I do differently? What Einstein, right? You keep doing it over and over again, you can get the same results at the end.
Yep.
And so it's such a cliched quote, but yet it's so true. I mean, how many of us get stuck in that rut where we keep saying, I'm banging on this door and nothing changes and I don't even know what to do anymore? Okay, well, maybe it's not them, it's us.
Yep.
And occasionally it is them. But then I say, okay, if we know it's the other person, if we're 100% sure it's the other person, what can I do to help add value to maybe change their perception of the situation? And granted, it's not going to work all the time. I mean, humans are humans, right? And so you may be dealing with someone who's just quite simply a jerk. But if you don't sit back and reflect on it, how will you really know that you've given it your 100% all, right? And so self-reflection, critical. What went right? What went wrong? What can I do differently? And even the things that went right, what can I do differently? How do I make it smoother? How do I get an even better outcome? So I reflect on the things that went right, not just so I can pat myself on the back, but so I can say, okay, I want to get that in my brain, right? I want that process, that what worked in that situation becomes second nature to me. And that's critical. And self-reflection will do that for you.
I love this. It's really close to self-awareness. It's pausing and it's looking and analyzing, and maybe sometimes for some it would work for you, it would work to take notes and to analyze, like you said, if things didn't go well, to see what can I do differently, how can I drive the change from within. Again, it's that self-empowerment first. A lot of times, and I feel the entire world around us right now is set on that trajectory of victim mentality, that things are happening to me, I'm the suffering one, somebody come rescue me. That's really not gonna help you be empowered in the long run. You're gonna have to shift from that mentality. If you recognize those patterns in yourself and you hope and you think the world has to change or the people around you have to change for you to be happy and fulfilled, that's not gonna work. I say I've tried that. I've tried it with my husband, I've tried it with my kids. I failed miserably. And I, like you said, I banged my head on the wall until I realized that, hey, I gotta be the change. I gotta drive the change. Right. And when I started focusing on things that I do want, and when I start generating the words and the actions that I want to produce, it was a magic around me. The people and the and the events start shifting. My perspective started shifting. So that's the same with leadership and influence. And that reflection can help you to pause and to say, how can I generate that empowerment and change from within? And like you said, you may encounter a person that it's just impossible to influence. And that's okay. Don't beat yourself up for that.
Right.
But yet in many cases, you can drive big success. And then building that muscle of what went well and building on it to really become strong and strong in specific areas can drive success for sure. Yeah. I love our conversation today. So many good nuggets. It's a pleasure. So many practical tips. And maybe Ed, how about a few tips that you can give? Also, I love practicality. How can our listeners positively, now that we've done all of this work, self-realization, self-discipline, we're starting working on leading ourselves. How can we impact? What can we do to positively impact our lives of people around us?
Well, I think we have to remember people want to know three things, okay? They first want to know if we care about them. And maybe that's on a personal level, but it's certainly from a business perspective, it's do we care about the things that they care about that are important to them, right? So they want to know that first and foremost. If we don't care about them or they perceive we don't care about them, we're dead in the water. There's no way that we can influence the situation if they get the sense that we don't care.
That's true.
Once we demonstrate that we care, the next thing they want to know is, can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
And so do we bring solutions to the table? Do we bring ideas? Do we, again, bring our value to them to maybe help mentor them through a given situation? Once we demonstrate that maybe we have some answers or at least willing to assist them with their challenges, then comes the biggie, and they want to know if they can trust us.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I hate to be cliche about trust, but we all know that trust is earned.
Yes. And
in our initial interactions with somebody, they will grant us a small degree of trust.
Yes.
It's just human nature that we'll trust someone a little bit to see if they're going to burn us, right? Yep. And as we build that trust, we open a little more, a little more, a little more. Okay. So we have to be careful with that little bit of trust they give us early on, because all it takes is that one stomp on it, and we're probably not going to earn it back. And so if folks don't believe that we care about them, we can help them, or that they can trust us, forget it. There's no amount of adding value, of self-leadership, of influence, anything else. You can buy them all the popcorn and cookies you want. It's not going to change anything, and how often do we try to do that? We try to buy someone's trust or whatever. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Early on in my career, and I didn't think that I was doing anything amazing. I just knew that if I wanted to solve the problems of the workplace, had to get out and just talk to people and walk around.
Yeah.
And I remember that, I'd show up at 3:00 in the morning to talk to the early morning shift, and I'd be walking around with my coffee, and manager would say, "Oh yeah, here comes Krow again, just walking around. He must want to go golfing today. That's why he's here at 3 in the morning." Right. And it only took a couple of times for me to go to their post-operation meeting and say, "Hey guys, here's what's going on out there. And you've got an issue over here in this part of the building with this work group," and, and start laying it out. That it took a couple of months, but that shift manager would start to ask me, "When are you coming in again? When are you going to be on our shift again?" And again, I was just doing what I thought was the right thing to do, which is I hired these people. So I want to make sure they're getting treated well. And so I'd go and spend time on whatever shift I needed to. And people would say, "Well, gosh, Ed, you're already working long hours and you would just take time to just wander around and talk to people." Yeah, I did. Why? Because it put fires out before they had a chance to start. And so it made my job a lot easier in the long run. And it built on those three things. When employees see that you're, a suit, quote unquote, walking around at 3 in the morning while they're slaving around away in the middle of the night, that demonstrates that you care about what's going on. And the first couple times I address their concerns, now they know I can help them.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not just another suit walking around, because this was a union environment. So there was the trust was a tenuous thing.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things are critical. And I'm not perfect at it. I don't mean to sit here and I don't want your listeners to say, "Oh, wow, he must be." I'm on the learning curve just like everybody else.
Yes.
I have my skeletons. I've got things I've messed up. But through the reflection, I've said, okay, I messed that up, right? I'm not going to beat myself up over because I can't fix it. What would I do differently the next time around?
I admire that example you've given us, Ed, and the 3 practical steps is, show that you care. And I think when the care comes from the heart, when it's genuine, people can sense that energy, and that opens up that window, because like you said, everybody's on shield from the first beginning. When you truly comes with care and it radiates through you that you do care, that opens up the door. And then, really building that trust and your desire to help them, or a desire to lift them up, your desire to encourage them to be the best they can be. That's, I think, the best traits of the leadership is, I think John Maxwell said recently, I've heard a quote from him: "If you're on the top by yourself, you're not a leader."
That's right. Yep.
You're going to have people, with you there running together, and you're cheering the race.
Nobody gets to the top of Mount Everest by themselves.
Yeah, so it's simple, and again, it's really looking at the value of all of us as humans to be able to connect, to relate, and to build those trustful relationships that we can start with our self-empowerment, and then we can spread that power and help others shine as well. That is fantastic. I really, really enjoy our conversation today. We're so much aligned with our views, and you sharing your experiences and your insights are really, really valuable. I do find our listeners, I believe, will find a lot of value in this conversation. And Ed, if someone is interested to reach out to you, I know you have a book, but maybe also share a little bit about what services that you offer right now, if someone's interested, in how they can find you and what you do.
Oh, well, thank you for asking, Jana. So I do have a website. I think it's the best website in the world. It's simply edkrow.com.
It's the simplest one.
That's right. And that's Krow is how I spell my last name. And I find that my practice today really revolves around helping companies to achieve their growth strategy and their growth goals. And so my clients, my active clients right now are all in accelerated growth mode. And they recognize that their people function is a critical component in whether they're going to hit their growth forecasts. And so they're working with me on things like setting the right compensation and incentive plans to reward folks' efforts. We're working on things like business succession planning and training the next group of leaders coming up through. In fact, tomorrow I start a training program with a client that has just promoted a number of frontline employees to frontline supervisors.
That's
so
awesome.
It's the classic. These are the great widget makers with great attitudes, but this company is smart enough to realize if we don't get them some leadership skills, they're going to fail, right?
Yes, this is awesome.
And so those are three of the bigger things that I do for my clients. Oftentimes, a lot of this starts with, in fact, a client that's coming on board here next month. We're taking a look at their entire HR function to see whether it's doing the things it needs to be doing for them to support the growth. And this isn't a knock on their HR person. It's a chance for me to come in with her and say, hey, let's dig into what's going on here and let's figure out, I'm not there to take her job or to say she's not doing it. I'm there to make her better. And those things are a lot of fun. And in that case, I always tell the client, look, before we engage, I need to meet with the HR person. And she and I need to hang out for a little bit because she needs to feel comfortable. I can help her. It goes back to what we just talked about. I want her to know that I'm there to help her and that she can trust me to help her in this case. So those are the things that get me up and moving and get the blood moving every day for me. I'm so fortunate that the work that I do has tangible results. And that my clients see on the back end what our work together has accomplished.
That is fantastic. And I love your approach and how you help companies to accelerate and toward that growth that I think many companies want to experience nowadays. And there's some startups that are really into that growth potential opportunities. And HR, I like we've started that conversation today about, the so to speak, so-called portray of how HR is being seen within the organization. HR has so much potential, and historically may not be the best seen by employees. But I think if you transform the way how HR feel about themselves, my counterparts feel how we feel about ourselves, how we present ourselves, and how we know that, as HR professionals, we can make difference in the companies and in this world and the people's. I know there is a compliance issue, but things that you need to watch out for the company, but at the same time, at the forefront is really taking care of people and development and accelerating and being that backbone and being that force to help the company toward the next growth. So I really admire the work you do. I think it is absolutely necessary. And nowadays, I think there's no other probably department but HR has seen so many pressure from all the pandemic and changes and constant things that are happening within, around us. So it's really admirable. So I would like for you to connect with Ed on LinkedIn, find him on LinkedIn, send him a message, connect with him, have a chat with him. If you find that you're interested in his services, I hope that you get some phone calls and some inquiries after that.
Always happy to connect with like-minded individuals.
That is phenomenal. And as we close in today, Ed, maybe some few things that you would like to share on a far away note.
Well, I mean, I think if we had to sum up our discussion in kind of one sentence, I believe it's that mastering your ability to positively influence others, I mean, that is ultimately the key to your professional growth. And again, regardless of what profession you're in, that's what's going to make you successful. The degree to which you can influence others around your vision. And so there are great books out there on influence. John, you mentioned John Maxwell. He's got a great one called Becoming a Person of Influence. I'm getting ready to start another one now. What's the title here? Called Key Person of Influence. And that's written by Kevin Harrington. He was one of the original Sharks.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to getting into that one.
That's awesome.
And but yeah, I mean, I think that that's our key. Is our ability to become influencers. And so get that on your, it's not too late to put your New Year's to-do list together and get that on your New Year's resolution list.
Get it on the calendar, make it a priority and schedule it. Well, thank you so much for coming into the show today, Ed, and sharing your perspective, your wisdom, and your knowledge. It's so much value. I've really enjoyed our conversation today.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. This has been a blast. What a great way to start the week.
My pleasure. Wow, that was really, really wonderful. I love how Ed gave us some practical advice where to start. And I hope you have taken away some good notes and you have taken away some actionable items for yourself. Definitely have it on your calendar to have some type of a self-development, whether you're reading book, watching podcast, watching some type of a TEDx conversation, whatever resource may be, that you can start growing that ability, that skill of self-leadership first, and then growing toward your ability to become the person of influence, to make the big difference in your life, in your professional career, and just to change people for better around you. So I'm really thrilled to be here with you to spend this time, and I'm thankful for you giving this time to us. I'm looking forward to chatting with you again next week, and until then, keep powering unique you, my friend.